Is the luck of the Irish with us?
Testing the Irish mead. So we started this about almost 3 weeks ago, so this is kind of young, but I noticed the airlock was showing a neutral pressure. That's usually a sign that it's slowing down. Might be time to take a reading. It doesn't mean it's done. It just means it's time to start looking at it potentially being done. Okay, so I'm going to take the bung out of there. Now this is the one that has elderflowers and heather tips and lemon and honey. It's got a lot going in there, and there's plenty of nutrition for those yeast. So I'm wondering if maybe it's done or did it stall? We don't really know. So that's why we take readings. It's going to be a little bit messy because all that stuff. Now you might also notice it's really low in the bottle, because remember when I made it, it was way up here. And all those soaked up the liquid, and now it's just kind of come down a little bit. So we might lose a lot more product in this kind of brew than we think we would. So I'm going about halfway down to avoid as many floaties as possible. I think I did pretty good.
Yep.
Is that floating?
Yep.
Just barely. Okay. There you go. So this started at 1.136, which is a pretty high starting gravity. Right now it's at 1.040. Let me whip out a calculator and figure that out. So, to do this, we use the formula on screen right here. OG minus FG times 135 equals your ABV. OG being the original gravity, which would be in this case 1.136, minus our final gravity or current gravity, which is 1. Let me make sure now. Nope, hasn't changed. Still 1.040. It wouldn't change. If it changed there, then I read it wrong. That leaves us with 0.096, okay? That's how many points of gravity were used up. So using the coefficient 135, we can actually figure out how much alcohol there is. 12.96% alcohol. Now this is Lalvin 71 Beast yeast, or Lalvin 71B, which means it can go to 14%. So this might still have a little bit of a ways to go. It's a little surprising, but it's roughly 13%. It's not that far off. You know what? Let's just give it a little taste and see how it is. It's going to be a little chewy. Got some floaties. But they're herbs. They're good for you.
Now, Brian really doesn't like having sediment of any type in his beverages, so if he makes a weird face, it may be simply because of that.
Yeah, I'm gagging. That's what it is.
It has quite an interesting bouquet.
It's very strongly aromaed.
It's very floral and citrus at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot of citrus. Even though we only use the zest of half a lemon, I'm not getting so much lemon as just like a citrus in general, but lemon is not exactly how I'd attribute it.
It's very lemony, though.
It is very lemony. It's actually quite pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me of the tea wine, only a lot better. And it has it's pleasant, and it's a little sweet right now. I kind of hope this doesn't go any further, because this is good. I like this.
My suggestion would be to rack it.
Yes.
Because
I don't want to extract anymore. I think we got enough of the herbal floral notes in there.
Yep.
So let's do that. Now, racking this is going to be a little bit problematic, because no matter what I do, I'm going to get some floaties. I'm going to get some of the stuff. There's a decent amount of sediment in the bottom of there too. But I am going to rack it the traditional way. We're not going to pour it or anything like that. I'm just going to be kind of careful. There's going to be some loss. That's okay. It's part of the game. What I want to do, though, is punch through that cap and get to about the halfway mark before I start it going. And I'll get a few floaties in the beginning, but after that, they should be lessened. Like right now, I'm seeing there's very little coming through.
I've lowered our pitcher to the bench that we're sitting on So that way we have the height difference between our original fermenter to our racking pitcher.
That way we didn't have to get out a bucket. The bucket's a little precarious. We almost had a fermenter slide off. Now, being that this is the first rack, I want to get as much of the sediment out as I can, but I'm not going to be like too picky if a little bit of goop gets sucked up in there, because I want to get as much product as I can too. So you're constantly playing that game of more product versus a little bit of goop, because it's going to sit again anyway. So this is going to clear and it's all going to come out. It's fine. Now, somebody's going to say that we could have put this all in a bag or we could have put it in some sort of a container. Yes, you absolutely can, and that is another way to make it neater and cleaner. But I wanted to use this particular fermenter because I wanted to get the maximum out of it, and I didn't have any of my 1.4s available. If I had a 1.4 available, I might have just put it in a bag or in one of our, what do they call them?
Rumble jar.
The rumble jars, and we'd have been fine. Then this would be easy. I'd just go, foop, and it'd be done. We need to do that.
Yep.
It's coming. You'll see it. All right. And there we go. Now, you might think that that's a lot of loss, but I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of liquid in there. It's mostly solids.
All right, so we're going to use this auto siphon again.
We got over 3/4 of a gallon out of that.
To transfer this to our vessel that we're going to use for conditioning, but I'm going to take this auto siphon and rinse it out really good before putting it in the sanitizer, because there's way too much stuff on it.
Goop. Okay, so we racked it over and we did it to a 3-liter bottle. Carlo Rossi, they come with free wine, so they're pretty convenient. And I kind of gave this a little bit of a shaking. That's why you see the foam in there, because I wanted to get some of that gas out to shoot any oxygen out that might have been in there from the racking process, because we did go back and forth with the racking. These silicone bungs are not necessarily good. See how we have to use a rubber band to hold it down? Well, the rubber band flipped off just now, so it wasn't holding it down anymore. And it just wants to pop right back out. You have to dry them real good, but that kind of defeats the purpose of sanitizing, and we just go back and forth with this all the time. So I am just going to rubber band the heck out of this thing and hold it in place. And then I'll re-sanitize and take care of it after the video's over. So if you've ever thought about getting these silicone bungs, think twice. The rubber ones actually tend to work a little bit better. Now, a caveat on that. These bottles kind of suck for these stoppers. They're a little too small.
Yeah, I'm thinking we probably have the wrong diameter of bung for this.
Yeah, we just
bottle.
need to get different bungs for these. So I blame the bungs, but, well, I blame the bungs. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. So, this mead, it's not done, okay? It just needs some conditioning. It needs some age. So this is, she's just going to hold it. So this is going to go sit under the desk or in our fermentation area for probably a few more weeks. Let it clear out, let it settle some more, and then we'll come back to it. 10 days have gone by. It's time to give this a check, and maybe we're going to bottle today. Let's hope. By check, I mean, hydrometer reading, get a specific gravity. This was at 1.040 when we last looked at it, which is a little bit high. But if I remember correctly, we liked the flavor. And to say that 1.040 is too sweet, well, that's not really accurate, because if this had a lot of acidity, then it wouldn't be. If this was kind of like spicy, then it wouldn't be. And this is kind of, it's an herby metheglin. So it's possible that 1.040 is the sweet spot for this. Get it? Are we floating?
It looks like maybe.
Barely, but we're floating. It looks like it went down by about 2 points. So it went to like 1.038, which, okay, you know what? If that's what it's going to do, that's what it's going to do. Let me take a note, and we'll work with it and see what happens. But at this point, what I want to do is take a quick little taste and see if it needs any adjustment. Now, something of note is this brew is just under 4 weeks old. So it's very young, very, very young, actually. Most of our brews don't get bottled this young. Mostly because of time constraints, but this one, if it's ready, it's ready. Definitely smell the citrus, and it's a little bit young. I get some of the herbiness. Now there's heather tips, elderberry flowers, and lemon zest in this. It's actually pretty neat. It's got the lemony flavor. You definitely taste that it's a green mead, okay?
It has a herbal essence to it.
It's a metheglin. I mean, it's an herbal metheglin with lemon, which I have to say, at this age, I can appreciate it. But I'd really like this to age more before we do a true tasting. And then, of course, we're going to have a 1-year tasting. I think this is too young to really give a fair assessment to. But I can taste the foundation. I can taste that potential. I mean, you can see it's relatively clear-ish. I think we're going to bottle it anyway, though. Because why not, right? Because it's done. It's not going to go any further.
For me, it's reminiscent to a nice herbal tea. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I just taste a little bit of that green note to it. That's the only reason why I'm reluctant and all. And this may not clear. I don't care if it does or not. It doesn't really matter to me. It's clear enough to bottle. And that's what's important to me. We are, however, going to go from the fermenter to a pitcher so I can degas because
it is so young, we want to make sure that we degas it before bottling.
All right, so racking is done. Looks like we got, I'm going to say 3/4 of a gallon, roughly. I mean, that was a 3-liter bottle, so the yield is getting smaller and smaller. When you use herbs whole like that and you don't put them in any confining area, they take up a lot of space. As far as degassing, not a lot of gas in this. That's kind of surprising. It usually takes a couple of months for things to naturally degas. Being that this is only at the 4-week mark, I'm surprised. Usually when I break the current that way, I can really see if there's foam. I might be creating foam just by stirring it.
Yeah, it's very minimal.
So I'm not going to worry about it. If there's any carbonation left residually, it's what's called petulant. And you don't really notice it when you're drinking it, but sometimes, a little carbonation is a nice thing. It's okay.
Since we have gone ahead and racked it into a pitcher, we have removed the cap from our auto siphon here because we can safely put it all the way to the bottom without worry of sediment. Ryan's going to go ahead and
we are going to use the
the
bottling wand.
Bottling wand. And I'm going to prep our bottles.
And as we always do, whenever we're doing anything, everything that we're using is sanitized in
the red bucket of sanitization!
I got her when she couldn't do jazz hands. But what that means is we have a bucket off to the side with water in it. Usually it's pretty warm water, like not hot, but warm enough. And we fill that, obviously, with water. We put in the measured amount of star sand, and that becomes sanitizer liquid. And we leave these things soaking in there for just a couple of minutes usually, and that sanitizes. It's very important when you're making brews to sanitize. We don't stress it like we used to, but it's a big deal. So every one of these bottles, all the lids, the siphon, the pitcher, everything, even our hands, because we're touching the outside of these bottles, there's sanitizer liquid on there. We dunk our hands in the water too before we get going, and everything's clean. That's the idea. That way that you get no infections and things like that.
Because I am the cleaner of things, we have had a question before, does the sanitizer kind of dry out your hands? The answer would be yes.
Oh, you determined that it was that did it?
There is something that I do, and I'm always doing something, so my hands are dry. I'm thinking it's this, but who knows? Anyway,
to bottle. Take the bottling wand, put it in the bottom of the bottle. You have to press down to get it started, and we're going to do it back here just because it's easy and convenient, and start the siphon process.
It's the height difference that helps with the siphoning.
Makes it possible, as a matter of fact. Without a height difference, it won't siphon. I mean, it will for like a second or two. So we're just going to fill these bottles, and we'll get back to you when that's done. Okay, so we ended up with 3.5 bottles, which this will be our taster, and we'll probably show that in a couple of weeks. Even though I said I really don't want to do a tasting for a couple of months, I can't let that sit that long. So we'll probably do a tasting soon, and then the other 3 will probably get aged for a while. One of them, at least, will be 1 year, and that'll get marked, and you'll see that in like a year. So,
if you enjoyed this video, look up here. We have more.
Go watch them.